Called bank position. Loan limit to what you can make. Innovative employees. Call now. 888-555-2374. Sure, no limit to what I can make at a call bank. Whatever. But I'd done similar work before. Hell, I had done pretty much all work before. I was broke, not picky. So I decided to call the number. Rent was due, my electricity was 2 weeks from getting cut off, and I needed cash quickly. So I called the number, and they said they were having a group interview on Saturday, and it paid $20. I jumped on the bus down there and wound up taking some weird psychological test. Bizarre stuff, but $20 for 2 hours sitting in a crummy strip mall, filling out a test wasn't bad, even if I didn't get a call back. But I did. I was barely home when I got a call telling me to show up at 9 a.m. on Monday to start work, and to wear a tie. This is where it gets weird. Well, weirder. I hop off the bus the next morning and I'm at the really nice building. I've worked at call centers before and they're always some cheap, crummy place where square footage is cheap. This building is gorgeous. I'm brought up to the floor and shown my individual office. Not a cubicle, an office. It's nice. And while I don't have a window, I'm definitely not complaining. I'm shown around by my office manager who explains my new job. I'm to call people and ask them for some of their time. If they agree, I transfer them to one of the principals. I find the numbers I want to target. Red flags galore at this point. I don't even know what we're selling, and she makes it clear that I just have to get them to agree to give us some of their time. This makes no sense. No product, no call list provided. Paid based on how well I do. Seems like a scam, right? Totally bizarre. Maybe a cult? There are only a few workers and they just seem to be milling around. Then the principals arrived. Older men and women, but glamorous in an old money way. They just dripped wealth. Their clothes were expertly done. Everything looked incredible. One stopped in front of the office manager and smiled a perfect smile. Mr. Smith, this is our new caller, Caleb. He'll be directing calls to you today. Mr. Smith nodded at me. We're very excited to have you on board, Caleb. His eyes looked strange, almost reptilian. This is the first opening we've had for a while. I'm sure you'll make us proud. After getting introduced to the phone system, I started just dialing random numbers. Finally, I got an older man who laughed when I asked if I could have 15 minutes of his time.
Sure thing, son. Don't have anything else to do today.
I quickly put him on hold and dialed Mr. Smith. Who am I speaking to? He asked. Ronald, retired. Thinks we've got an exciting new product. And how much of his time is he providing us? 15 minutes. Thank you, Caleb. Please put him through. 2 minutes later, Mr. Smith appeared in my office door. Good job, Caleb. First jobs don't often go that well. Now try to find someone willing to give you more time. You get paid for how much time you can provide us. Remember, you can call anyone. There was another huge red flag. He couldn't have been on the phone more than a minute. What were we doing here? Things got weirder. I figured I would try a phone sex hotline. If I'm paying, they'd give me just as much time as I wanted, right? As it turns out, they would not. I got connected to Destiny, and once I asked if I could have some of her time, she got immediately weird.
We told you people not to call here anymore. No, you can't.
She hung up. I tried twice more on different lines and got the same response. I hadn't had much luck when one of the other callers asked if I wanted to eat lunch together in the conference room. There were only 3 other callers, and I figured I could pump them for more information. I tried to bring up every red flag so far, but they all shut down any questions. Mike finally leveled with me. Hey, listen, man. I've got a high school diploma and 5 kids. I've been here 8 years and made $500,000 last year, and took plenty of vacation. Stop asking questions. This job is the best thing that'll ever happen to you. Instead of focusing on what we were doing, I just asked for tips on who to call. Mike focused on stay-at-home parents he could tell they want a vacation. Carol liked to call empty nesters. Susan checked resume boards and asked people if she could have their time to discuss a professional opportunity. They asked what I was doing, and when I said I had tried a few phone sex hotlines, they all laughed. Those stopped working like 2 years ago, man, after they caught on to us, Mike said, although I didn't understand what he meant. After lunch, I got back to it, trying some of what everyone else had suggested. I had a bit more luck and finished up with 4 hours. At the end of the day, I was called into Mr. Smith's office and presented a check for $250. His office was odd, full of weird books, old and foreign languages, and antiques. There was also a red digital clock on his desk, ticking backwards from what looked like just over 600,000 minutes. A good first day, Caleb, he began. Remember, it's not just the time you gather, it's the time you use. Today you spent 8 hours here and generated 4 hours. It's a negative day, but you'll get the hang of it. At exactly 5 o'clock, the principals, there were 10 of them, left their offices and descended into luxury cars, the doors held open by their own drivers. I went to a check cashing place and then bought a prepaid debit card so I could pay my electric bill. The next few weeks went well. I was getting the hang of it and had very few negative days. Each day I was assigned to a new principal, and they all seemed to like me. The other workers relaxed around me too, and my checks grew, soon going over $1,000 a day. I got used to the weirdness. All the offices were full of antiques, with the exception of a digital clock each principal had on their desk, counting backwards from some giant number. I had no idea what we sold. It was a weird game to convince people to say they would give me some time, but I didn't care. I paid off my debt. I had an actual bank account that was growing for the first time in years, and I was able to upgrade my wardrobe. Then I had my big break. I had read an article about how hard the academic job market was. The next day, I found a good candidate online. PhD, postdoc, and was posting his CV everywhere he possibly could. The phone was picked up on the first ring. The guy on the other end already reeked of desperation. Hi, is this Tim? I'm calling this morning about the open professor position we have. Can I have some of your time?
Sure thing.
He was clearly nervous.
How much time do you need?
Well, I replied, how about the rest of your life? I could hear the thrill in his voice through the phone.
Does this mean a tenure track position?
Let me get you connected. I put him on hold and dialed Mr. Smith, who picked up immediately. Grad student. Think he's getting a tenure track position. How much time is he giving us? Mr. Smith asked. I paused. The rest of his life? Good job, Caleb. Put him through. At the end of the day, I was presented with a check for $100,000. The principal said I might set a record for the highest earner. I put a down payment on a condo and moved out of my crappy apartment. When I had another big day 2 weeks later, I bought a car so I could drive to work, and bought a spot in an expensive garage in our building. My parents visited, and I took them out to an expensive dinner. For the first time in years, they didn't think I was a failure. Everything was going great. I had money, my own place, a new car. I got up the confidence to ask out a friend of mine, Amy, and we started dating. Everything was going well until I went out one night to pick us up a bottle of wine from the corner store to have with dinner. On the newspaper rack was a picture of a young man with the headline, Grad Student Found Dead. I picked it up and saw the name of Tim. He had been found dead in his apartment, and his death was completely mysterious. I read through the article. He had died the day I called him. I called Amy and said I was feeling suddenly sick and I was going to go home. After a sleepless night and a trip to the local store, I had a plan. I arrived at work early the next day and set up a camera in the office of the principal I would be working with that day, Miss White. It was tiny and discreet, but I could monitor it from my office. When the principal arrived, I said hello to her and retreated to my office where I turned on the recorder. She was in her office with the door shut, reading some book in a language I couldn't understand. Her clock on her desk was at 754,000 minutes and counting down. I made a few calls before I got a hit. A student who jumped at the idea of a 2-week all-paid vacation. I transferred him through and then turned back to the recording. Miss White picked up the phone and smooth words poured from her mouth. Good morning to our big winner. I understand you're willing to give us 2 weeks of your time. She smiled and hung up the phone. Suddenly, as she did, I realized that the clock on her desk had changed. It now had an additional 20,000 minutes on it. This pattern repeated itself throughout the day. I couldn't figure out what was happening. At the end of the day, though, suddenly I saw her moving. She picked up her phone even though I hadn't called her and started speaking. Is this Amy? Good afternoon. I'm one of Caleb's bosses. Yes, we're very fond of him too. Listen, we're planning a surprise for him and I need some of your time. Is that okay? Well, I'm not sure, but how about I take as much of your time as I need? She laughed. Perfect, thank you. She hung up. Her clock jumped again, this time by tens of millions of minutes. She turned towards the camera and looked right into it. You shouldn't have done that, Caleb. I ran to the door of my office, but found it locked from the outside. I pounded on it and tried to dial 911, but suddenly my cell phone had no service, and my office phone was disconnected. I screamed and kicked the door. It was hours before I slumped, defeated against the wall. I heard a click and the door swung open to show Mr. Smith. He motioned for me to follow him into his office. When I arrived, I realized his clock, which I hadn't gotten a good look of for a few weeks now, was also tens of millions of minutes higher than it had been. You're a natural, Caleb. I stared at the floor as he continued. But you pushed too hard for answers. So we had to show you what we're capable of. We had to make you understand. I glared at him. That grad student is dead. He nodded. So was your girlfriend. We had to make an example. What are you? He smiled. We've been called many things over the years. So many names, so many rumors. The truth is, we are immortal, but we need others freely to give their time to us. In old times, this caused rumor that we had to be invited into a house that we could not enter freely. But those same rumors also made us seem most unsavory. I spat at him. So we're killing people? That sounds pretty unsavory to me. He sighed. Not very often. Someone will get a phone call and offer 2 weeks of their life, an hour, a month. When they are older, they will never realize that they have lost that time. So we hang up and they feel a tiny bit older, though they cannot describe it. I stared at the desk while my world swerved. What do I do? He smiled. You will have a good life. You will come to work and continue to help us get time. You will be handsomely rewarded. You may stop if you like, but you will never speak of this to anyone, or there will be consequences. We needed you to understand that. He paused and took a check out of his desk for $500,000. A bit extra, since I know there was an emotional connection today. I took the check as he walked past me. You can have a life people only dream of, Caleb. Your recent work has been exemplary, really pushing the envelope on what we thought was possible. I waited for a few minutes before I took the elevator to the lobby and walked out into the night. I felt nothing. It was like my soul had left my body, leaving only emptiness. My life stretched out before me, and I knew how it would look. Full of money, importance, glamour, empty pleasures. I knew I would deposit the check in my pocket into my account. I knew I would be back at work in the morning. What else did I have? What else could I do? Maybe you're hoping for a job, or a vacation, or for your luck to change. Maybe you've been waiting to hear about an exciting new investment opportunity, or you're lonely and want to spend time chatting with someone. What I'm asking is, Can I have some of your time?
Hello everyone, Jay here. I hope you guys enjoyed the story today. This is still a new channel, so feel free to like the video and subscribe. Even leave a comment if you would like, and don't forget to share the spooky. Stay creepy, my friends, and remember, fear not the darkness itself, but what may lie within.
What?